welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you step by step how to apply dip powders using the gel method. So let's go ahead and watch me nail it. The products I'll be using today are Virgo & Gems Base Coat, Virgo & Gems Top Coat, Skyline Soapworks Crystal Clear Dip Powder, Virgo & Gem Dip Powder in the color Festival, a toothbrush, nail brush, or a kabuki brush, a 100 grit board file, a 100 by 180 grit sponge or flex file, a lint-free wipe, and maybe a couple of other small things I'll point out along the way. I've already cleaned and prepped all my nails and applied und peel off base coat. Once your nails are cleaned and prepped, you'll use your favorite brand's base coat and apply a full coat to your nail. Be very careful not to flood your cuticles or your sidewalls. You will then cure according to the manufacturer's suggestions using at least a 48-watt lamp. At this point, I like to build myself a little apex. This is completely optional. Some people don't need an apex building layer. Other people may need to build it up using a few layers. I like to use clear because sometimes the pigments can look even more pigmented just in that short little spot. That depends completely on the powder, and that's a choice for you to make. To build this apex, I apply a small line from the center of my nail towards the tip, and then I dip it in clear. I like to lay my nail flat into the powder, but you can also pour over if that's your preference. Once dipped in the powder, I like to pat the powder down. The great thing about gel is you can mess around with this as much as you like until you cure it. Cure again according to manufacturer's suggestions. After curing, take your brush and brush any excess powder off your finger. Now you'll take your base coat and you will apply a full layer to your nail, again being careful not to flood your cuticle or your sidewalls. For solid colors, it's a good idea to give the powder a good stir to mix in the pigments and floof it up a bit. For glitters, give the jar a little tap if you want to bring more of the big glitters up to the top. Again, my personal preference is to lay my nail right on top of the powders and then let it sit and soak into the base for a couple of seconds. Some people do like to pour their dip over their wet nail. Both are fine, just don't push your nail into the powder like you would with dip liquids, because that will cause the base and the powders to bunch up and wrinkle, which is difficult to correct. To clean the cuticle line, I like to use a toothpick. You can also use an orange wood stick if you have one on hand, or even a dotting tool, just something sharp. I prefer the toothpick because it's a very thin point and I can get a lot more accurate with it. And I always tap down my powders before I cure. I find that this really helps with getting the powders flat and to lay nice, especially right up against that cuticle line. And it really helps to reduce the amount of buffing and filing you have to do. Don't forget to cure before moving on to the next step. Go in again with your brush and brush off all that extra powder. I like to use the stiffer toothbrush because I feel as though it makes those cuticle lines nice and crisp and also helps to reduce the buffing and filing. At this point, you just go in and repeat all the same steps that you just did for the last layer. Here you'll notice I missed a little spot on the side of my nail, and that's totally fine. It'll get covered up with the next layer. Not a big deal. Oops! Look, I'm gonna fix it right now. See how easy that was? You can't do that with dip liquids. This is one of the big reasons why I really love the gel method. You can fix mistakes all the way up until you cure. Pat down your powders, and then when you're happy, cure. With Virgo and Gem, I cure for 30 seconds with the base coat. Again, don't forget to brush off all that extra powder. Now at this point, you're going to want to make a decision. So I like to check my bendiness, how strong it is, how flexible, how my pigments are looking. My nails are really thin and bendy, and even though Virgo and Gem gel liquids are pretty strong, they are thin, and I felt like I could go with another layer at this point. At first I thought I would go ahead and dip in clear. A lot of people like to encapsulate in clear, and I do sometimes, usually with my glitters though. I did end up changing my mind because I felt like this particular color, the pigment was a little jelly-like, and I thought I could use a little bit extra just to make sure it was more opaque. I have found that as I go along in my mani, it gets easier and easier to clean up those cuticles and sidewalls because you're building up the layers, and it gives you something to sort of guide your toothpick or your orange wood stick as you go along. Cure again and brush off the excess again. At this point, you're going to take a look again and make your decision. Do you want to go for another coat? Do you want to encapsulate in cleared? How do you want to make that work? I thought about encapsulating in clear, but I decided I didn't need to do that because there's going to be so little filing that I need to do. Speaking of filing, let's get that 100 grit board out and start working on crisping up my shape and making sure it looks just like I want it to. Once I'm done with that, I take the same 100 grit file and I go along my sidewalls and my cuticle line. I like to make sure that those edges are super crisp. That took practically no time at all, so now I'm going to take my flex file or my sponge file and I'm going to use the rough side. And from there, I just take it and I smooth out the surface. That's really all I need to do. Because I'm using gel, there's no bumps really that I need to be filing off. And if I do, I just take my 100 grit file and I use that. But for the buffing, I use my flex file and I just go over it until it's all nice and smooth. Now you don't want it to be so smooth that your gel top coat won't adhere. So what you need to do is make sure you use that rough side, because if you use a buffing block or the 180 grit side, you will make it too smooth and then you will have a chance of peeling. I'm leaving this portion of the video at real time so you can see it really didn't take me long at all to get the buffing and filing done on this finger. Next, I'll take a lint-free wipe and I'll just wipe off all of that dust that I created. You can use alcohol on the wipe if you want, but it's not necessary. Just make sure that alcohol is dry before you move on to the next step. Now you're going to go in one last time with your base coat. The reason I use another layer of base coat with no powder is because I like to have something for my top coat to really adhere to. That will help avoid any kind of peeling that you might get. So then you'll cure and then you'll come in again with your top coat this time. This is what makes it shiny. This is what really finishes the look of your manicure. Be sure to always cap the free edges of your nail. It's not terribly likely that you'll need a second coat of top coat, but that's also a personal preference. You may find that there's a little bit of bumps or unsmoothness that you might want to just smooth out with a second coat, and that's okay. Don't forget the cuticle oil. That's an important step that will keep your cuticles healthy. I use a mixture of jojoba or jojoba, however you want to say it, and vitamin E oil. And there you have it. Repeat with all your nails. You don't have to do them individually. You can do 4 or 5 nails at a time and then cure them all at the same time, and that works great. I did encapsulate my glitter nail with clear. That does make it a little bit easier for filing, but it's not always necessary with the gel method. Sometimes you need such little amount of filing that you can get away with not having to encapsulate your glitters. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you like what you saw. If you did, then please like, please subscribe, please comment below if you have any questions or anything you'd like to say. I hope to see you again, and I hope you nail it too.